Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Cheese Room podcast. I'm your host tonight, the caller, and we are here to do some healing and some looking forward. Before we start, I'd just like to say I've had some discussions with the board of the Cheese Room this evening, and despite my social media support for Coldplay, they have agreed I can continue to host the show. If the BBC are watching, I am also available for Match of the Day duty if needed. We've got an action-packed show for you tonight as we talk about the latest debacle, the latest captain cock-up that is Tottenham Hotspur, and of course we've got Forest fan on. Adam, welcome to the show. First of all, I should say welcome on behalf of everyone at the Cheese Room. Adam, you're on mute. I'll go round. Are you there, Adam? I'll go round the room. HG, not some warm welcome to you.
Hi. Yeah, it's not snowing here, even though you think it probably should do. But no, it's good. End of the week, only 3 weeks to the holidays. I'm excited. Weather's warming up. Spurs are about to hit their run of form to make us believe again. It is a good time to be a Spurs fan.
I mean, you're kidding yourself, right? You have watched us in the last 7 days now.
I have, but this is what Spurs do. We have a bad end of February, early March. We did that last year. We've done it, over a number of years. Really, we always get knocked out about this stage in Europe. So we're about to, focus on the Premier League and somehow pull fourth place out, and rinse and repeat. But it could happen again. Why not?
JP, how are you feeling, mate? Probably warm because you're in Australia.
I wish I had HG's optimism, but I'm thinking about the season before last and the season before that and the season before that. We could very well finish 10th. But I'm doing well. I'm ready to heal with the rest of you.
We didn't.
Last year?
Yeah, no, and the year before, we've not finished lower than 7th. We always pull it out.
May as well be 10th if we're finishing 7th.
Oh.
Who wants to play in the Conference League again? Not us.
It's fun. HG gets to go to possibly away games in Europe.
That's right.
It's fine. It's fine.
HG gets us to go and watch us lose more embarrassingly to worse teams. That's all I heard there.
Hey, can I say we didn't lose when I went to that COVID game that was 3-0 in the snow, but yes, yeah, look, I get it, but like we whatever the end of the season target ends up being is what we end up getting. It may not be what we wanted at the start of the year, but we somehow get European football of some kind. So why not again?
Sure, we'll go with that.
I mean, yeah, I love the fact that Daniel Levy can put in his chairman's notes at the end of every season. We've qualified for European competition X amount of years in a row, like 15 or something. I mean, does the Europa League count, Bren? Not the Europa League, Europa Conference League. Surely that doesn't count. That shouldn't be newsworthy.
It was celebrated, so it was a European competition. It was shit. First off, apologies if my internet cuts out. It's looking quite ropey from here, but yeah, it's not been a great season, and I wish I could share HG's optimism about pulling it out. Have you been out with Carl Walker? Sorry, but yeah, it's been an interesting week to say the least for Spurs fans, and manager looks like he's on his way out, and if Forest do, which they quite possibly will, there's no way he can carry on after this weekend.
Adam, can you hear me and can you speak now?
I hope so. Yeah. You
Yes.
can hear me. Okay. All right. Okay. We're all good now then. We're all good.
How you doing, my friend?
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on. Your optimism for Forest is a much more than most Forest fans. I can assure you of that. So, yeah, it should be fun.
Adam, Forest fans haven't been watching Spurs though. That's the difference.
No, I mean, unfortunately, I did on Wednesday, and it was like watching paint dry, wasn't it? But
yeah, that is every week, Adam. That is every week.
That wasn't our worst performance of the month.
No. The Sheffield United game was something to behold, really. Adam, I understand you have another podcast that you go on as well.
Yes, yeah. So I'm from the 1865 Forest podcast. So that's all things Forest over on there. It's good fun. We talk about the games, post-match reviews. We do like a nice monthly segment where we all get together and talk about the month. A lot of transfer news, especially with Forest signing so many players, like all the media outlets keep saying. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
72 at last count this season, wasn't it?
Yeah, everyone knows someone who is a Forest player. Every person on the planet Earth knows a Forest player, apparently.
I was going to ask, 1865, is that just your transfer count?
Yeah. And you do a wrestling podcast as well, don't you, Adam?
I do, yeah. The TGP Wrestling Podcast. We've been going nearly a year now. We've had some big names on. We've had Austin Aries on the podcast.
Really?
Yeah. Ex-Ring of Honor champion, TNA champion, you know.
I know he is, yeah.
So it's been good. It's grown quicker than we thought it would in the first year. So it's all positive news over there as well.
I've actually seen Austin Aries wrestle twice in Flow Rider when I was over that way. Yeah, it's and apparently you bear an uncanny resemblance to Oliver Skipp. If you watch it in the chat, firstly, why haven't you hit the like button yet? It's 54 of you already, 6 minutes in. Do smash us a like if you want to hear lots of witty banter and HG's anecdotes throughout the show. There is a run sheet. We're going to stick loosely to it, but we'll go a bit off piste as well. That's half the fun. And let us know who your favourite wrestler of all time is in the chat, and we'll put the best ones to Adam. But I know there's at least one wrestling fan beside me in the chat. HG, favourite wrestler of all time. This is down our WhatsApp chat. I was like, rank these 10 wrestlers. We have a little bit of banter about it. Go on.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously, I'm probably considerably older than Adam, so mine will be most of the wrestlers I liked have died of drug overdoses or whatever, suicide. But my all-time favourite is probably Mr. Perfect. I love the gimmick. I thought he was just brilliant. As a 10-year-old, he was my favourite, and it's really stuck. And the music too was just spot on. Outside of that, Kurt Angle. I that kind of like the cocky bad guy always played better with me. No one likes the hero. Certainly not me.
Kind of plays to your mantra, really.
Well, I just I wouldn't. I don't know. I'm certainly not as successful as Kurt Angle, but it's more entertaining. Who wants to watch the good guy win all the time? We'd all be flipping Man City fans if that was who we were. So
Very
no.
True.
It's those two stick in my mind, but it's been a while since I really watched wrestling.
Yeah, Bren, you got a favourite wrestler?
Growing up, probably Macho Man Randy Savage. He was the flying elbow.
Oh yeah,
like the top turnbuckle. Like he was all action. Ultimate Warrior as well. Again, just nuts. Hopefully they're still alive.
No, he's dead.
Both
of them, mate. Both of them are dead.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. So yeah, I don't want to. If I say another one, they're probably dead as well. So I'll just leave it there.
JP, got a wrestler? Do you like wrestling?
I grew up in the Stone Cold era, so I'm going to just go there.
Yeah, I like Stone Cold. We've got some good answers in the chat. Let's go through them quickly. And then I'll ask you, Adam, so it gives you a minute to think of your reply. Cameron likes the Taker, who doesn't. Bray Wyatt, Andrew Lyons, yeah, he's good. Big Daddy. Kerry King likes a Big Daddy as well, which is good. So the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, Hardcore Holly. I didn't think anyone liked Hardcore Holly, but there you go. Giant Haystacks.
Well, Andrew did. I mean, you got one person who did.
Yeah. I don't like fakes, but King Hoddle. You watch Spurs, come on. My drummer, Booker T. There we go. Adam, your favourite?
Probably AJ Styles for me. Just been so transformative across so many different companies as well. Yeah, probably AJ Styles for me. But I like the old school shouts. I do like the old school shouts from all you guys. So
old school. Adam, how old are you?
I'm 24.
That's just fucking depressing.
I don't think we needed to ask the question. You could kind of just pinpoint us based on our answers to wrestling.
Exactly.
JP, how old are you?
Broadly early 30s.
There you go. But what? I don't even know where I'm going with this. People think I'm early 60s, but I'm really not.
It's Davo, you wrong one.
So we're going to briefly talk the Milan depression, the Forest preview. In fact, let's do the Forest preview first. Then Adam can get off if he wants to. If he's more than welcome to stay for the whole show. But Adam, if you feel like hanging around, feel free. But we all know you're here to talk about Forest, so I think we should do that first. Adam, talk me through Forest season so far, I guess. What is it what have been the highlights and the lowlights? Was signing Serge Aurier the highlight? I mean, I've got to ask.
You know what? With Aurier, a lot of Forest fans were, we signed him and thought, oh, here we go, big money, last paycheck, that type of signing. That's what he looked like to us. But then he's been absolutely fantastic for us. He's very well liked with the Forest fan base. But no, I mean, the season's gone really better than we thought so far, probably, I would say. I think a lot of Forest fans expected we'd probably be a bit closer to the bottom three. Didn't think we'd be sort of 14th, 13th in the league, and didn't think we would have beat, Liverpool. And we've had some big results over the season, so we're probably doing a little bit better than people thought we would. I think the big concern with us, and probably a positive for you guys, is our away form is horrendous. It's one of the worst in the whole of the football pyramid in this country. So, yeah, it's not looking too good away from home for us.
Yeah, last couple of results up there. A Desmond against Everton, 4-0 defeat to. How'd you lose 4-0 to West Ham and drew with City? How did that happen?
So it's weird. I went to both games. I went to the West Ham game, and to be honest, we were very average for 70 minutes. It's not like we weren't battering West Ham, but it was fairly even, and we sort of felt that maybe we could sort of go and nick one, and we made a couple of changes where we took Shelby off and brought Ayew on and sort of went a bit more attacking. We went from a sort of traditional 4-3-3, went 4-2-3-1, went for the game, and then as soon as we did that, they scored, and we just fell apart. We've done it a few times this season, just concede one, and then they just go in like London buses. It was so frustrating, but it's Forest away from home. Yeah, so that's all I can really say on that one, to be fair.
Okay. I've got a few questions for you here, done by the wonderful person who compiles the run sheet. I'm thinking Dave, probably reading what's on the run sheet rather than John. John's more level-headed than Dave. So first question: of all your summer signings and your January signings, of which there are many, which one do you think is your best?
Morgan Gibbs-White. Yeah, 100%.
So he's the lad from, was he Arsenal? Wolves, was he?
Wolves, yeah. He's just a terrific footballer. I think that's what it comes down to. When we signed him, there was a lot of press like, "Oh, you've signed him for 45 million. Like he's not worth that or this." But it isn't that much, right? And it is add-ons and all that sort of stuff. And
if you try telling that to our chairman,
they signed Chunya for 50 million quid from Atletico Madrid, and Gibbs White is a better footballer than he is. So it's not. There's sort of like a bit of angry banter between Forest and Wolves fans at the minute over Gibbs White, but no, he's just a brilliant footballer. He'd be up there with one of our players of the season so far. Football isn't all goals and assists. It's not all stats, is it? He brings so much more than just that. I think if he starts adding goals to his game as well, then he could be a real player. And he's on the radar of Gareth Southgate if you read the press and all that as well. So we've definitely got a good player there.
HG, you got an opinion on Gibbs White?
No, I mean I liked him because he played at Forest last season right on loan.
That's right.
Helped him get promoted. Is that right?
No.
Was he not? He was on loan somewhere.
Sheffield United last year.
Dang it! I knew I saw him somewhere. I'm sorry, that's awful. But I did like him, so you got the right player at least. But yeah, I think we all thought it was a lot of money because he'd not really played for Wolves in the Premier League, and we didn't really know what we were going to see. But again, is that kind of player that when he's on the ball, he just looks so comfortable. Nothing seems to faze him. And at any level, if you can do that, then you're going to look really good. And so, Yeah, you're right. I don't remember him scoring too many goals for Forest this season, but even though Cooper seems to change his team quite a lot to try and find the best 11, Gibbs White was pretty much always in it. So I can understand why Adam said what he said, even though Sheffield United, what was I thinking?
Well, they just knocked us out of the cup, so you probably got some sort of PTSD.
We're both of
keep
them
mentioning
did,
the
Forest
name,
and Sheffield United.
Go on, sorry.
So Adam, you mentioned that the Forest fans have really taken to Aurier. What is it about Aurier that you've taken to?
I think the thing is, when I spoke to a few Spurs fans when we signed him, and the big concern with him is that he's very erratic, and he loses his head, and he'll do things that are just stupid, really. And that was not what I wanted to hear at all. But I think with us, he's been an absolute professional for us. He gives you a 7 out of 10 most games, and he's good going forward, but he's also good at the back. He's very relaxed on the ball. I think we've got a lot of young players, and we've got a lot of players that haven't played in the Premier League before. So I think just bringing in players with Premier League experience was always going to be a benefit for us. But he's probably been a lot better than most people thought he'd be. And there's already a contract on the table for next season for him if we do stay up. Obviously, that's a big dependent on most of our transfer business now. It's if we stay up, but it'd be nice to have him back next season. And he's definitely made that right back spot his own. And considering we signed Nico Williams for 18 million quid in the summer, and Aurier coming on a free and is still number one choice, it says how well he's doing for us, really.
It's interesting, really, because I thought that if we hadn't have released him under the Nuno days, that when Conte came in for a wing-back system, that he probably would have been our starting wing-back. But in a back four, he always felt suspect for us. But interesting take.
I mean, we've got an erratic centre back now, haven't we? So we've almost.
Can you imagine that right hand side if you had Aurier and Romero?
It'd just be limbs flying everywhere.
Two red cards every match, guaranteed.
Every single match. Steve Cooper, Adam. Tell us your thoughts on Steve Cooper. What are the Forest fans thinking? Has he done a good job? I know he got a contract extension mid-season, didn't he? And I'd like to take the views of the podcasters on the external view looking in. What you think of Steve Cooper? So do think about that, guys.
Yeah, I mean, what really can I say about Steve Cooper? I mean, he's second to Bryan Clough in probably every Forest fan's eyes. He got us back into the Premier League. He genuinely loves this football club. He talks about it all the time, how much he loves the club, how much he loves the city. He just seems to understand what it's like to be a Forest fan. He understands Nottingham in general. He's a fantastic manager. You think that last season when we came up, we were bottom. I know it is probably quite a tired lineup, but we were bottom of the league when he came in, and we ended up fourth in the Championship. Should have really been third, and we pushed for automatic all the way until the second to last game of the season. So the turnaround was immense, and he just seems to make players better. Brennan Johnson last season was outstanding, and this season a lot of people thought he wouldn't adapt to the Premier League, but I think Cooper's know how to get the best out of him as well. He's just a really good man manager. He understands the players. His systems work a bit better. The reason he was given the contract was more because of the fans' opinion on him and the overwhelming support from the fan base that said that we want Steve Cooper. If we go down this season, we still want Steve Cooper. There is nothing that he could do this season that would make us not want him because of how he got us up and all that sort of thing as well. So when we had the 4-0 loss away at Leicester and it was looking really bleak and we were bottom of the league, and at that point it'd be really easy for football fans to sort of go, you know what, no, like get him gone, he's out his depth. But Forest fans didn't do that. We had a banner for him. Forza Garibaldi, the Forest group that make all the banners at the City Ground, and they had a massive banner for, in support of Steve Cooper, and it almost, we turned it around a little bit as a fan base at that point. He changed it, a few like the formation, that kind of thing, but that was the big turning point after the Leicester game, where we sort of got to a point where we were establishing ourselves as a Premier League team then, and I think it did come from the fan base. It's just overwhelming support of him.
What do you think of the links to the Spurs job? I'll come back to your HG in 1 second.
Okay.
Look, I think that the Spurs job is a big job, and the allure to come to Spurs and play in an amazing stadium and the chance to not win trophies and all that sort of stuff, I'm sure it's absolutely is appealing for Steve Cooper. But I think that at the moment, it just wouldn't be the good thing for him. The thing is with these young, talented managers, we've sort of seen with Graham Potter a little bit, you succeed at a team in the Premier League and you use them as a stepping stone to go to a bigger club. That's absolutely fine. But a lot of the time, it may not work. And I think the Spurs job is a bit of a risk, especially for Cooper at the minute. And how much he loves Nottingham, how much he loves the club, I don't see it happening, to be honest.
HG.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that too. Like, Steve Cooper's got a great thing. Like, as much as I love Spurs, I recognise that it's not stable. You never know what's going to happen. So I imagine Cooper's got a probably young family. Why would you rock the boat too much? You don't need to. But the question I wanted to ask Adam was more like, you talked about, obviously he came in at bottom of the league last season and turned things around. Did he change things formationally, or did he just make things better? Because even this season you've talked about how he's adapted a few things and changed a few things around, and now you're getting results that maybe you weren't at the start of the year. What has he done to change things up?
So he came in and he implemented a 3-back. That was the system he wanted to play. 3-back with wing backs, which last season got a lot more out of Jed Spence and Max Lowe at left back as well. And those are sort of flying wing backs. It just killed teams. It just tore teams apart in the Championship. We were scoring goals for fun. We were just genuinely battering teams, and that's not. It was really exciting to watch. I think what you touched on there about this season, like I said, was that we tried to come into this season with that exact same, game plan of going into games with a 3-back, going in with your wing backs and catching teams and that sort of thing, and it just didn't work in the Premier League, and that's what got us up. And I think every manager that would get a team up playing a certain way would then want to play that way once they got to the Premier League, and that wasn't the wrong decision. But the games, probably like the Spurs game at home, was one of the games we looked at it and thought we played really well that day, and we did have our moments, but because we were so open at the back, that's where the goals came from, and they were really sloppy goals for us to concede, and that was happening a lot. We had it against Bournemouth and Fulham at home, and at the time we thought Bournemouth and Fulham would be down there with us, and we lost to both of them at home because we got cut open and cut apart. And after the Leicester game, we switched more to a 4-3-3, and it's seemingly we're not playing as the football's not as attractive, but ultimately we're getting more results, and that is all that matters, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I find it amazing that any manager would change a formation in the hope of getting better results, because we haven't seen a Spurs manager do that in I don't know how long. So I wasn't sure if it was even possible to do such things. But thanks for your answer. That was pretty good.
Bren, your view on if providing your internet's working in South America, it seems to be okay. What's your view on Cooper and the job he's done at Forest, and any questions yourself, Adam?
Yeah, I think he's clearly a decent, competent manager. He, with all the influx of players, I don't know if that was his decision or a club decision, but he seemed to have maintained them sort of outside of the bottom three, apart from right at the beginning. They're points clear, I think, now. So I saw the goals against Everton, and yeah, young Brennan looks a good prospect. His second goal in particular was superb, just really well placed. So yeah, there's rumours that he's one of the names for the Spurs job. I'm not sure about that, but he's been doing a good job there, and hopefully on the weekend we do win. But yeah, it's I'm not game at all. I think Forest will do us.
We'll come to that. Don't worry, Brent. We'll come to predictions. Don't go too early. JP Cooper, for you.
I wouldn't rant and rave if he ended up being our manager, because I think he's a good manager who would get the best out of our squad. And given I think we might come to it, we'll probably have a large turnover in what the Tottenham squad looks like next year. It wouldn't be the worst thing, but he's certainly not kind of top 5 on my list. I can imagine Levy and Paratici interviewing him and going, "Oh, he came across a bit weird, didn't he?" And not hiring him for that. So yeah, I don't think it's a realistic possibility.
Interesting.
But the key point is that a Cooper would be crazy to consider it.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah, 100%.
as much as we could give him probably a fair pay rise, it's like he's got a really good gig at Forest, and there's no like he's building something there. Where even if he's there for 3-4 seasons, if he consolidates them in the Premier League, I mean, this is it. Like I say we all, JP may not, but Brendan, Caller, and I, we all remember Forest in the Premier League, right? And being there for the first maybe the first 10 years of it, finishing third, I think, one year right early on. And so I think for us, I was quite happy Forest went up because it felt like, makes me feel 14 again, right? Because get all the Coventry City, no, maybe not them, but get some of those teams from when I was a kid back in the Premier League because
my second favourite team.
Coventry?
No, Forest.
Okay, good.
Like Sheffield Wednesday as well. 9 back retro.
I love Sheffield Wednesday. Proper soft spot for them.
But I don't know. It was nice to see Forest go up, and so of course I want to beat them, but it's to have Forest be a force. Obviously they're not going to probably be European Cup winners like they were in the late 70s, but still I like the idea of those teams being part of it. It's a massive club in a massive stadium that was really spent too long in the Championship. So I kind of hope he stays there because Spurs aren't the right place for him, and I don't think many Spurs fans would have him as first choice either. So it's a win-win that he stays.
And if Tottenham were to sign him, it would be very much in the Nuno ilk of we'll give him a 2-year contract, and as soon as the person we really want, we'll move him on.
I think we're a bit Billy Big Balls sometimes. I think that's the truth of Spurs. Right to be so in some respects because financially, obviously, we're one of the biggest teams in the world. But on the pitch, I don't think we've got any real right to claim we're a massive club. And I think sometimes Daniel Levy, HG hits it on the head well. Daniel Levy, and we will absolutely get onto all of this later in the show after we talk about Forest, but Daniel Levy wouldn't consider Steve Cooper, in my opinion, because he's not someone he's heard of on the world stage. And I think that's pretty much what HG said various times before, and he's bob on. Conte, exotic name, won stuff, must be good. Mourinho, legend, must be good. Never considers, is that the right manager for our club? Is he a project manager? Is he going to develop youth? Is he going to play a system that the fans like? None of that. It's just like, oh yeah, I've heard of him. And I think that's kind of where he's at right now.
His approach to appointing managers has been very much, who did I wish I could have appointed back in 2008? That seems to be the way he's going.
Yeah.
One thing on Cooper as well. It's many managers come through Swansea. Swansea seem to do quite well recruiting managers. So you look at the likes of
Potter,
Roberto Martinez, Potter, Brendan Rodgers. They do seem to hire well. And he went from Swansea to Forest, and so it was a coup for Forest, I assume, a Cooper coup that they got him. But yeah, just surprised how many actual managers that do seemingly do well go through Swansea.
How will you line up, Adam? What sort of system can we expect from you guys, and what does the starting 11 look like?
I'd imagine before 3-3. The team sort of picks itself. It's sort of the same parts. We're still waiting for quite a few players to come back from injury. Believe it or not, we don't have a big squad. The amount of players we signed, because we didn't have a lot of players anyway, they were more supplemental for those positions. But it'll be, obviously, signing Navas was a big signing because you get that kind of experience. It's must be one of the most random signings ever if you're not a Forest fan looking from the outside and thinking, why Forest signed Keylor Navas? But for us, it'd be simple. It'd be Navas, Aurier, Waddle, Felipe, Lodi as a back four. The midfield three of Shelvey, Freuler, and probably Jack Colback. A lot of Forest fans would probably go for Mangala, but it'd probably be Jack Colback. And then it'd be a front three of Chris Wood, Brennan Johnson, and Morgan Gibbs-White. I would be surprised if it was any different, especially away at Spurs. It's a very pragmatic midfield. It is probably what I'd put it as.
I think the interesting thing there is that going through those names, I was trying to think who played the first game back in August. There's maybe 4 of them, right? Because Aurier wasn't there yet because he didn't play against us. It was Nico Williams that day. So it's like even in the space of half a season, you've changed 2/3 of the team. I mean that's just to get results and to get better. It's seriously impressive. Like I realise that Aurier has a history of he's an experienced player, and a few of those that have come in. But the Brazilian guys, none of us really know too much about. The left back who was at Atletico Madrid, we don't know a great deal, but they've come in and they've become a team. And yeah, even if the midfield is practical and pragmatic, well, that's what you need to get results, as you said earlier.
Has anyone told Conte you can change a team? You might need to get on the phone.
Yeah.
I think that when we set up sometimes, I think probably the complaint is just that we don't have the players that maybe want to play. Like Ryan Yates, for example, would be playing every game. He's been out injured. We've got Moussa Niakate at centre back, who looked outstanding before he got injured. Only got injured in August, and he's been out since. So we've not really had the best luck with injuries. We've got Taiwo Awoniyi who would probably start over Chris Wood. Chris Wood's probably not the most favoured player in Nottingham at the moment, so I'd say Awoniyi probably starts. So there's definitely players that probably would fit into the squad if not. But players that we signed in January that were just smarter signings of players that are experienced is, your Keylor Navas and Felipe both got Champions League experience. One of them has Champions League winning experience. And for a team fighting relegation in the Premier League, I mean, the big signings for us, and to add that experience to kind of get you through games, it would be fantastic. And, I'd love more than anything for Joe Waddle to have a game like he did against Spurs when we beat you in the Cup. That was probably one of his better games this season. So I think that it's a capable lineup. It just depends how the game pans out. And, if we go 1-0 down, then we're just going to get thumped. That's kind of how it's been away from home for us.
Well, there's not much chance of that happening given how we're playing. So,
No. Who do you worry about, Adam? Who do you worry about in the Spurs team? You're not to worry.
Oh, okay. I don't worry about Richarlison because he's crap. But I'd probably say, honestly, mate, Forest fans don't like him. The kick he ups.
No one likes him. No one likes him.
No, he's not well liked in Nottingham, put it that way. But no, you're obvious, your Harry Kane and Sarr and Kulusevski. I know they're not maybe firing at the moment, but Harry Kane is still one of the best strikers in world football. It's someone that can score a goal out of nothing, and you're always going to worry about that, aren't you? I'd probably be more worried actually if you were playing that traditional sort of Conte 3-back and Jed Spence was still at Spurs and actually got some game time. I think I'd be more worried about the right hand side then, but such is the Conte system, I suppose.
Can you believe our handling of Jed Spence, Adam, having watched him quite extensively?
No, I think that the thing is for a Forest fan watching that, and Gabriel Martinelli played against Forest last year and said that he felt that Jed Spence was one of the best fullbacks he's played against since coming to England. And against Arsenal he was amazing. Against Leicester in the Cup he was amazing. He proved against Premier League sides when we were in the Championship that he is capable of playing in the Premier League. But when he signed for Spurs, we all knew it was going to happen. The rumblings came out in January that he would be going to, one of the big London clubs. It's closer to home for him and that sort of thing. And we knew we wouldn't be keeping him at the end of the season, which was a great shame because we absolutely loved him. But when Conte came out at the start of the season and essentially said, I didn't want Jed Spence. He's not my signing. He's a club signing. That was alarm bells then, wasn't it? And I think he's been treated very, very unfairly. And he is a very, very good young fullback. And it would make more sense if you had a really good right back or you had a really good right wing back, but from my evidence, from what I can see and from what a lot of people post online, especially Spurs fans, you don't. So it makes less sense that Spence has been sort of disregarded.
Yeah,
someone's been watching our show, I think.
It is a very, very, very strange thing, but there you go. We've just spent 45 million euros on a exotic right wing back, Pedro Porro, who actually did look very good. Actually, I thought when he came on in midweek, but we'll get on to that later. You must be confident of a win. We've lost in effect 3 on the spin: Sheffield United, Wolves, and Milan. So, Adam, are you thinking you're going to win this one?
No. Look, we've scored 3 goals away from home all season. We've won 1 away from home in the Premier League, and that was against Southampton. I think away from the City ground, we're just not the same team that we are at the City ground. If we were playing Spurs tomorrow at the City ground, I think I'd be fairly confident, that we would get something. But away at Spurs, it'd be tough. But I think what a lot of Forest fans have said, and I think said correctly, is that it won't be the nicest, friendliest atmosphere from the Spurs fans in the ground tomorrow, because we all know what it's like. Your club's not playing well. You're not getting the results you want. You're not happy with the manager. Whatever it is, it can turn pretty quickly. The mood in the ground can turn quickly. It can turn toxic. So if we get amongst Spurs, and if we got a goal against you, I mean, the fans will be right on their back then. And I think we could get something. And I'm speaking very optimistically, but I do, for someone that went to West Ham and watched us get beat 4-0. But I do think we can get something against Spurs. I don't think the club's in a great place at the moment. But usually when you have a big loss, like, getting knocked out of the Champions League, usually there's a reaction to that. So that's kind of where I'm thinking Spurs probably do still win.
To be fair, I've been waiting for a reaction for a few weeks now, but none comes. Okay. How do you think we're going to line up, JP? What's your views on Spurs starting formation? Well, no, we know the formation. Let's be really clear about that. We know the formation. Starting 11, I should say.
Is anyone not available for this match? Dier's back.
You got Lloris is unavailable.
Well, other than the injured players, there's no red
card.
card.
I don't think there's any suspended. It's just the injured ones.
Yeah. I mean, Foster in goals, Romero, Dier, and Davies. Longley. Be the back 3. Then we'll have wing backs of Porro and Davies. And then in midfield, I'd like to see Sarr and Hojbjerg, but it will probably be Skipp and Hojbjerg. And then we won't change anything up front after Richarlison's comments. Following the last game, it will be Son, Kane, and Kulusevski.
I can't believe the slander of Ollie Skipp there, JP. I'm not having that.
It's more where's Sarr getting at the minutes. Here's an opportunity for him to play.
I know we might see this as an opportunity to rest our best player, but that is,
pretty much
sacrilege. Brendan, your view?
Say again, sorry. It keeps cutting out, sorry.
Sorry, Brendan, did you hear me?
Yeah, it cut out. What was the question again? Sorry.
Sorry, your view on the starting lineup tomorrow.
Yeah, pretty much with JP on it. I think there is question marks over Emerson Royale's fitness, so that would suggest then that Porro does get the nod. And yes, Richarlison's comments have ruled him out. So in terms of the lineup, I'm with JP on that. There's not really much to change. I wouldn't play Sarr. I'd stick with Skipp and Hojbjerg and keep that consistency. But yeah,
I thought Skipp was our best player midweek. To be honest, that's not saying a lot.
Him or Porro, were decent.
But every dad thinks their son was the best on ground.
Well, that's not. I mean, I am like a proud father to Skipp. I can't deny it. HG, your view?
Look, I think we all know what's going to happen, don't we? It's pretty much what JP said. Dier will start. The question is what we do at the left-sided centre-back. If we go Longley, then Davies will play left wing back. If we go Davies, then maybe Perisic will play down the left wing. But that's about it. It's the same kind of choices that we're going to have for most of the season, really. I don't see much changing week on week, but it would be nice to see. Like, even if Emerson is fit, and he may not be, but if Emerson was fit, I'd still want to see Porro, because you need to have more attacking threat. And as well as Emerson has been playing, we haven't seen any attacking threat from Kulusevski, so it has to come from somewhere. And so Porro would be the one for me. But yeah, I feel like every game for the rest of the season, we know 7 or 8 players that will play, and it's just a question of really what we do from there.
That's generous as well. We know 9 or 10 of the players that are going to play.
Yeah. I say that, like, in 2 weeks we might have sacked Conte and have Pochettino back, and who knows what will happen. But right now, it looks as if... I mean, again, that's what we did at the end of last season. The team basically stayed the same for most of the season, and we ended up getting results. But there's no evidence that that's going to happen this season. Sadly, it's just hope.
Right, let's do predictions. Adam, you're our guest, so I'll let you go first. What's your prediction?
I might be the most positive about Spurs on this podcast by the sounds of it. It's so hard. I'd probably say 1-0 Spurs. I don't think it'll be a good game of football.
Okay, Brendan?
We can guarantee it won't be a good game of football.
We will grind you down to our level. Brendan?
After hearing Adam's comments about only scoring 3 goals away from home all season, that's given me a bit more optimism. So I think we probably will nick it. And see, I'll go 3-1 Spurs.
Aurier's going to have a blinder, I'll tell you that much. JP, your view?
Well, given the NHS have stuck around at Tottenham Hotspurs Stadium to fix up every team that comes, I reckon we're going to get a scoreboard 1-1.
Oh dear. And HG?
I hope Aurier realises he owes us about 3 penalties. So
just 3.
Yeah, I only remember a couple of them. I don't remember them all. I kind of want to go with Adam. Like, Spurs will probably nick it. It will be like the Wolves game at the start of the season where we won 1-0, but no one remembers anything apart from the goal. That's kind of what tomorrow will be, and likely Kane will get it.
And I'm going to say we're going to win 2-0. A solid 2-0. Kane's going to score. Son's going to score because he's due a goal. Mind you, I've been saying that for a long time. I know, big claim. I tell you, put your bet on now. Son's going to score. But yeah, I think a solid 2-0, and it will buy Conte a whole 7 days. Adam, if you want to go, mate, that is up to you at this point. We're going to talk a load of Spurs stuff and transfers and various other stuff. So you're welcome to hang around, or you can have some time back.
No, I mean, look, it's up to you. I mean, I don't mind staying on. I find it very interesting talking to other fan bases about their problems. It makes our problems seem smaller. So
brilliant! This is we're sharing, caring football fans here. This is what's going to happen. There we go.
Let's do it then. So Milan, a plucky performance that saw us fall just that little bit short at the end of the day. A 1-0 defeat on aggregate, 0-0 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Yeah, I mean, where do we stand in the Spurs Hall of Shame for that, Brendan? How bad was it from your perspective?
It has been worse. I think we do need to remember that like always springs to mind away when their manager was in prison and they still did us. That was rock bottom, I think, for me. But it wasn't great. Just the lack of invention, the lack of guile, just the meek sort of whimper to go out the Champions League like that it was always predictable. But as I said, I think there are other sort of backstories that have come from Carlson's comments after the game. Obviously, Romero's red card, that brings up that conversation as well. But the fact it took us till the 94th minute to have a decent shot on goal. Like, I don't think that Hojbjerg's one really counted. It was straightforward, tap the keeper. That's the worrying thing. That if it was under instruction or if the players have given up or down tools to a certain extent. But yeah, it wasn't great. And chanting for Pochettino as well was predictable. Again, I'm not sure if I agree with it. The booing of the substitution of Davinson Sanchez, like, was that booing the manager? Was that booing Sanchez? Was it a bit of both?
So it's like a 2-for-1 at the supermarket. Sanchez is shit and the substitution was shit, wasn't it? Brendan, while I've got you at your South American knowledge, how do you say Richarlison correctly? Richarlison, is it?
Richarlison.
So pretty much the same as it is English. So here's the quote. Yesterday they asked me to take a test at the gym. That if I was good, I would go to the game. At the time of the game, they then left me on the bench. These things it is not possible to understand. Let's see what he will say tomorrow. There are no fools here either. I'm a professional. I work every day and I want to play. When I enter the field, I give my life. Bit extreme, definitely South American. I came from 2 games well. I should have played. This season, sorry for the word, it's been shit because I don't have minutes. What's your view on that, our South American correspondent?
I think it was given in Portuguese, so there's a level of lost in translation there as well. I think it was probably misguided. He scored against West Ham or Chelsea. I think his position would be much but he did. He played well. He ran around a lot, and he brings something that Sonny doesn't. But I don't think sort of claim that, or to suggest that we beat Chelsea and because of him stretches it. I don't know. I just think had his position. I understand his frustration. I think he's frustrated himself as well as with the situation with the manager. And I think him calling Conte out, he wouldn't have done that if he was of the impression that Conte is going to stick around. So I think he was like, right, well, Conte's going in the next couple of weeks. There's always players in their WhatsApp groups. They're all talking. And I'm not saying they've down tools. I'm just saying that they're to bust a gut, to risk injury, to go that extra mile for a manager that's not going to be here in a couple of months. So I think it was misguided and probably frustration with himself. But I could understand his frustration. Yeah,
interesting one. JP, Richarlison getting all a bit stroppy. Do you think that he's within his rights to do so?
I mean, he needs to pick his moments, and that was probably not the greatest way to present it. But the sentiment behind what he's saying is not wrong. I think we've all shared it, that, or at least I've been very vocal, that you can't expect a player to come in and perform well for you if you give him 5 minutes every second game. I'm a big believer that you need to play yourself into form, and he's not given that opportunity. That said, I 100% agree with Breno. He's been very generous to himself, saying that he played well and deserved a starting spot based on his performances. Now, maybe he deserves to be playing ahead of Son at the moment, but his performances, for me, don't say, yeah, you're the starting 11 player. We've got Danjuma and Lucas, who Danjuma hasn't
Hang on.
played.
Whoa. Stop. Rewind. Can you just finish that? We've got Danjuma.
Well, to be
honest, I
honest,
like to pretend Lucas is gone. He's on the boat to Sao Paulo.
But if we look at those performances, I don't think he was any better than Lucas was. Over the games where Lucas played, I don't think he did anything more than what Lucas did, and so I don't think he really has an argument to say based on those 2 performances, I should be starting over Son, Lucas, and Danjuma.
I disagree because, I was at the stadium. He worked his absolute nuts off.
Can work your nuts
off the ball. You might not see it on the telly because it's not tracking him round. He is working his absolute guts off all the time, providing loads of cover defensively. Now, don't get me wrong, the quality in the final third wasn't necessarily there, but he's also playing in a position that really he's a centre forward. He's not a left winger.
For sure.
And I just think defensively, he's in the system we play. He doesn't get in the way, and I think Son gets in the way. It's as simple as that for me. He provides shitloads of cover down the left where we've looked very flaky all season. So to me, he's an automatic pick. I understand the goals argument, but I think you need matches to get, into your group.
I'm just looking at it as if we gave everyone a chance, right? We're not, but let's say we gave everyone a chance. You get 2 games, you get 2 games, you get 2 games, you get 2 games. Lucas has had his 2 games. After the performance of those 2 games, I don't go, yeah, you deserve to keep that spot over the next person. But his point is valid, though. Like, I think he should have been getting, throughout the season, more minutes ahead of Sonny.
HG view on all of this?
Pretty much what King Hoddle puts here. Look, Son wasn't dropped for the first chunk of the season because at various points Kulusevski and Richarlison weren't fit, and so he was kind of fit for most of it. And of course, Bryan never got a look in. So you have to remember, for most of before the World Cup, we had 4 players that could play, and 1 was always injured. So Son played pretty much every game, almost I think because of that. Having said that, since then, if you're winning, which let's face it, those games that Richarlison is talking about, we did win both of those games against West Ham and Chelsea. Whether he was a massive part of it, isn't really the point here. He didn't play well against Sheffield United, but no one did. And so it's like to decide suddenly, well, you know what, you didn't score in those 2 games, and you played badly against Sheffield United, so you're stuck on the bench for who knows how long. A lot of us would probably like to see Danjuma given the go, because we haven't seen a great deal from Richarlison and we haven't seen a great deal from Son, but still, it just feels like, it feels as if there are favourites, and Richarlison isn't in that 3. If the other 3 are fit, they're going to play. And then Danjuma and Richarlison can just decide where they want to sit on the bench. And I think for every fan, no matter what team it is really, but no one wants to see that. You want to see some kind of meritocracy where if the team is playing well, great, you keep them in. If the team is winning, okay, you can keep them in. Conte said it himself. Richarlison is better suited for what Conte wants to do than Son is. That's not necessarily a slight on Son, it's just the way that our front 3 play with their back to goal most of the time. That's never been Son's game. So I can understand the frustration. Obviously, Brazilian TV is there for a Champions League game. He's going to put. Maybe Brazilians are wondering why he's not playing because he's their number 9. There's lots of personal reasons as to why he would make that comment in that interview. But it just means, frankly, that he won't start this week, and he probably won't start too often before the end of the season. As long as Conte stays, he's going to play Son, Kane and Kulusevski. That's wrong, but we should expect that to be the case considering what's happened so far.
Just time to say there's 126 people watching right now. Only 40 likes. Smash that like button. It really helps us out loads. Outside looking in, Adam, at front 3, is it fair to say that Son, from the outside looking in, is having as poor a season as he is from the inside looking out?
Probably, yeah. I think what it comes down to is that when you're an outsider looking in, you look at a team's players and go, oh, he's a really good player, oh, he's a really good player. That means that he must start every game. And technically speaking, yes, Kulusevski, Kane and Son would be probably your best front 3 on paper, but football is played on grass. And if those players aren't playing well, then ultimately there needs to be some sort of change. I watched the Milan game the other night and I just felt that it was just crying out for somebody to come and make themselves a hero. It was one of those games where nothing really didn't really get anything going, it didn't really look like scoring, and you've got players on the bench that might be able to change the game. Richarlison comes on a bit sooner than he does, or even he does start, and then maybe you get a bit more of a difference in the game. But I think what he said after the game was probably quite emotional. You get out of a game, you're disappointed, you've just been knocked out of the Champions League, you didn't get to play a big as part as you wanted, and you maybe get a bit emotional and you say something that maybe didn't come out the right way, but he probably has got some level of a point, hasn't he? I mean, he got bought in for £60 million. It shows that there's a lot of faith in him as a footballer, that if you're going to bring him in for so much money, you've got to give him half a chance, haven't you? You've got to give him, a bit more of a run in the side. So outside of looking in, every time I've watched Spurs this season, it's not been pretty. And sometimes when you're a manager like Conte, who's won so much and has succeeded so much, you get kind of arrogant in your own head to think, well, I'm doing this must be right because I'm doing it. And I've won trophies and I've done this, I've done that. So I'm doing it, so it must be right. Sometimes you have to take your ego out and think, you know what, maybe I'll change it. Maybe I'll give this player a run. And I think that's what Spurs scream at this point in time. There's some players that just need a run in the side. Yeah,
no, I agree with you. I think that is arrogant would be one word to use to describe Conte, wouldn't it, Brent? Oh, you're on mute, mate. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, his comments post-game I thought were a disgrace. The way he sort of said that you can't history of AC Milan between the two teams. Never says us, never says we. It's always Tottenham in. I don't know if it's the third person. HG is the English teacher. But you know what I mean? Like, he clearly doesn't care. He's not bought in the club. He doesn't want to be here. And it really wound me up. They really did. It was rubbed salt in the wounds after going out the Champions League so meekly, for him to just sort of come along and say about miracles, about we scraped it by a miracle because of him to get to the Champions League. Milan are the champions of Italy, so they're clearly the better side. Which is like we played terribly against Sheffield United as well. Like when was their Scudetto? It really just I'm done with him. Like and it always like this with Conte. We usually with a few trophies before, but he hasn't won the league in England in 6-7 years, and football has changed in that time. Maybe his methods were sort of an overlapping time between the sort of pragmatic football that himself and Jose played, and the overlap with the more progressive football that we see from the likes of Guardiola, from Klopp, from, dare I say it, Arteta. So yeah, no, I'm so done with him. Those post-match comments, just and you don't want to be here. Stop, and for Levy to keep him going. I'm sorry.
Can I ask you something, Brendan? Like, I know, obviously, I live in Austria, and I know it's kind of different here in the attitude of like taking responsibility for things. Like in Brazil, is there a culture of like if something goes wrong to say, you know what, I'm going to fix it. I was the problem. I'm going to fix it, or is it very much like the culture of, well, you know, let's share the blame here. Let's push it away from me for a second. What's it like in Brazil? Because I'm assuming that Italy might be different. So I want to get a bit more understanding of how things seem to be around the world.
Do you mean in general or to football?
Yeah, just in general. Because like I said, in Austria, it is very much find a way, find an excuse. Like, do not ever say that you were the reason things went wrong. Never admit to failure. Never do that. That's the culture here, and it took me a while to figure that out. So I just wondered if it was similar in Brazil, if it's a Central European thing. I don't know.
My tech.
Bren's stuck.
Okay.
Oh dear, that's a shame.
Know.
No, he'll be back. Oh, there he is. Did you get the question, Bren?
Oh, no, yeah, I got the question. It was about sort of taking responsibility and. Yeah, I'd say in Brazil they do. There is a culture of sort of problem solving and community, which we haven't seen from the current managers. So yeah, culturally, Brazilians are like. I hate to keep going back to Sandro, but Sandro is going to be an excellent manager because he does encompass that sort of bit of redknapp. He's studying up as well now. He's doing his. So, yeah, I think that
it wouldn't be Brendan on the show without a Sandro update. What did he have for breakfast this morning, Bren?
I don't know. I think he's traveling. But no, like I see what HG means though, and no, I think there is more of a. And the managers here, you see the type of managers like Chiche, Edu, although he's a director of football at Arsenal, seems to be a very good guy. I think my tech's gone out again, so apologies.
Well, thanks, Bren. Because I mean, like I understand that Brazil is not Italy, so I'm not conflating the two. But I just wonder because like I genuinely was surprised that it is very much here of like no, like if something happens on your watch, like you've got to find a way to say it wasn't you, right? But yeah, maybe I'll have like my daughter's elementary school.
Shaggy.
What is that in English? Infant school. My daughter's infant school teacher is Italian, so I'll have to ask her.
But even like, I don't know, on those comments, right? Those comments alone for me were enough for him to be sacked. He's done that 20 times. Like,
well,
it's just...
This is where I'm coming to, JP. So one of the things, I can't remember who was it said, was it you, Brendan, said he always talks about Tottenham in the third person, and it's never we, it's always the club and I. So this is his repost to his rebuttal to Richarlison's comments today. He scored no goals for us. I think he was really honest to say his season was not good. His season has not finished yet. If he deserves to play, I'll give him the opportunity. But Conte did take issue with some of Richarlison's comments, and this is a quote. For the rest of the interview, I think he made a mistake. When you speak of I and not us, you are being selfish. I say to my players, if we want to build something important and we win a trophy, we have to speak with we, not I, because otherwise you're thinking of yourself. Is he living in a parallel dimension where he doesn't realise how he comes across, or what, JP?
Yes. Maybe yes. I don't know. The whole thing with him has been weird. I'm glad he said it and brought it to the fore, because I've been looking at it going, I feel like this is what he asks of the players, but then he acts in a completely different way. And he's just come out and given us the proof that that is the case. I don't know what's going on. I don't really want to understand. I just want to be done with it.
It's the strangest thing. I mean, he I don't think he's done a press conference where he's referred to himself and the club being we. It is always I.
The most frustrating thing about it as well is that he'll leave and the narrative will be, oh, Spurs didn't give Conte enough to make them win something. Where I actually think in this instance, and you can absolutely level that at previous managers, in this instance, Conte has not turned up for us. And I think that's the shame of it.
Well, he did the first season, didn't he? I mean, let's be honest. Did any of us really see this coming at the end of the season? You know, we went into the summer window, we spent a shitload of money. We thought we'd be in a much better place because we saw the Spurs of end of last season, who were playing really pulsating, positive, counter-attacking football. We just haven't got going, have we? At any point this season.
To be fair, we all said last summer what we need is a left centre back and a right wing back, and we didn't get either because we bought Spence and didn't play him. Right, so in theory, until January, we could only be as good as we were, and with injuries, that was very fortunate to be even in the same area as that happening. And so it was a missed opportunity. I understand that we all know we needed another striker because Kane has played every game for I don't know how many decades at Spurs.
But he's continued to, even with another striker.
I know, but again, it was that case of early on, was it Chelsea second game? Right, where Richarlison came on. He did it against Forest in the third game, but he came on and we went 4-4-2 against Chelsea and we fluked a point. We played terribly, but we fluked a point. So early on you thought, okay, we could use all four at various moments. We might actually do something. But then as soon as one got injured, I can't remember which one got injured first. It might have been Kulusevski playing for Sweden. And then it was like, right, Richarlison's playing down the right, which he never did for Everton. He never doesn't do it for Brazil. And so we kind of got stuck in this idea, but in theory, I think we've all seen it. We'd like to see Kane up top with Richarlison and go old school 4-4-2 and let the two of them play off each other because you think that might work. But it's been so just pedestrian and predictable and any other P word you can think of that it does now. And we're all looking at Conte. We're all we got annoyed at what he was saying, but we were getting results, and now we're not getting the results. It all falls on him because, as JP said, we have spent money, and for whatever reason he hasn't played them. We've had options all season, and he hasn't played them, and that has to fall on him. No one else is picking the team.
And we need to come back to all this. There's been things in his personal life that have absolutely will have affected his passion and his desire. It would for any of us, right? I think there's a kind of a clear mark of, after Ventroni, I think things didn't start well, but I think after Ventroni, things started to really go downhill. Yeah. So absolutely there's reasons why that happened, and I don't blame him for those. But when we think about kind of what's happening on the pitch, I think he has to take some responsibility for it because he is directly tied to what's happening. And he's not getting the best out of this squad anymore.
I think that's the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is he is not maximising the asset. So on that basis, Adam, would you sack him now from an outside looking in? Or would you wait till the end of the season when his contract expires?
Look, I don't think finance is as much of an issue for you guys. I mean, you could probably use the financial aspect and say the only thing you've got to play for now is top four. So, if you sack him now, what's the difference between sacking him now or the end of the season? But I think, to be honest, losing the dressing room is an overused term, but it's just so toxic, isn't it? I mean, it just doesn't seem like it's salvageable. And this is what Conte does, though. It's not the first time this has happened. He's not at a club for a long period of time because gets to a point where he just falls out with everybody. It's not surprising this has happened. He was never going to be a long-term solution at any football club. Never mind coming in at Spurs and being that. So, personally, yeah, I think that's a simple answer. Sack him after Forest, but probably, yeah, sack him.
Maintaining the best
that means you might
for
beat
you
us.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we win tomorrow, then he'll get sacked anyway, won't he? So I'll be happy. You guys will be happy. That's what we all want, really, isn't it? You know, Forest win tomorrow, everyone wins.
Yeah, I mean, he also made, a comment today in the press conference about Danjuma, because there's a bit of a clamour for Danjuma, and I think I'm right in saying he said, "Well, I was going to switch to a 4-2-4 before the sending off when Romero just went completely Luco." He's just unlucky, really, because then I couldn't bring him on. But he's a club player anyway. He's a club signing. I didn't really want him, to all intents and purposes. What? Who does that, Bren? Who does that?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like he clearly doesn't. It's almost like he's daring Levy to sack him with some of these decisions. Like, and
comments.
Done.
And comments, and comments as well. He said in the post-match press conference, I've got a contract to the end of the season. Maybe the club will sack me sooner, basically.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And why wait? Why drag it out? Like even if it is Ryan Mason for the next 12 games and we see who's available in the summer, I'm fine with that. Like Mason proved that when Jose left that he was a steady pair of hands. There was the video of him shrugging when Conte made
I was coming to that, and a lot's been made of that. I mean, we don't really know what the conversation was there, do we? I mean, it could be anything, to be honest, but people are surmising that he was going, "Well, why are you doing that? Nothing to do with me," kind of thing. But which, if so, is damning. I don't think that's probably the conversation that took place within the realms of reality. But it's a nice little bit of conjecture, isn't it?
Like, part of me feels it's weird, right? Like Pochettino is sitting there, right? We can have this conversation about future managers, but he's sitting there, and we all think he would take the job again, right? But for some reason, the club haven't done it. And Adam's right. We've got the finances to sack Conte. I mean, it's a fair chunk of money. But for us, we can do it. We've sacked managers before, so it's not a problem. But it does feel that the club don't want Pochettino, right? And considering, like, if Pochettino showed up tomorrow, like, you'd have 55, 60,000 Spurs fans completely behind the team, if only because they were behind Pochettino. If only because Pochettino was there instead of Conte. You could pick the same 11 players and the crowd would be uplifted just by having Pochettino around. But if the club haven't done it, then you kind of have to ask why. Like, what is it that they're nervous about? Do they really think there are better options out there? And if they do, are those people already in jobs? And that won't happen till the summer. It's like, in an almost perfect world, you'd say to Pochettino, "Hey, can you do the next 12 games and not Mason?" But Pochettino's not going to say yes to that. Why would you? Right? Like, you might hope it, but it's ridiculous to expect it. And so the club is kind of, as we were, 2 summers ago when we couldn't find a manager, in catch-22. They're not going to sack the one they have because they don't have someone to replace him. And as we saw with Sherwood, that can also go, haywire if you sack someone and not have anyone lined up. So it does feel as if they're putting feelers out to see what might happen in the summer, and basing the next couple of weeks on that. And if a manager is like, "Yes, I'm interested, but only in the summer," then Spurs might say, "Well, we'll wait and we'll see what happens with Conte." If Conte does the next 10 games like he did the last 10 games of last season, everyone wins and he can go with his head held high. He's done a good job at Spurs. We're still in the Champions League, blah, blah, blah. And you get the person you want in the summer. But again, it's that massive uncertainty that we've had all season long. We don't know what we want to do, where we want to go, who we want to be. And we've got a whole bunch of players, not even the ones that have been signed in the last summer, but a whole bunch of players that are probably going to come back from their loans. And then what? Like, who is taking that on? And it's crazy that we don't really know yet. Like, if the club came out and said, "Right, we've got Conte till the end of the season, and then someone else is going to come in," that would almost feel better. We wouldn't be having this conversation. And is it going to happen this week? If we lose to Forest, what will happen then? Like, every morning you get people on WhatsApp saying, "Has he gone yet?" Well, no.
Me mainly.
I mean, and it used to be about Levy, and now it's about Conte, or is it about both? Like, Spurs are a mess, an absolute mess.
We haven't even got on to Paratici either. Do you know what I mean? Like, he could be in jail in a couple of. Do you know what I mean? Like, and he's the one that we making the decision. His manager will be, and he could be banned from football for 30. It's such a mess. Only Spurs get into this mess. I'm going to jump out, guys, because my tech is awful and I keep messing up the stream. So lovely to see you guys again, and back soon.
Bren, it's been lovely to have you on. Take care, mate.
HG, I think you hit the nail on the head, HG. Like, if the club was on board with Pochettino, Conte would be gone already. But clearly, there's, not everyone agrees that Pochettino is the right one, so they're taking their time on.
Which leaves us beautifully onto management sacred cow. You're each going to get a manager, and to make the case for said manager, Adam, you're going to. This is. I don't know if you've been briefed on this, probably not, but you're going to make the case for Steve Cooper to be the Tottenham Hotspur manager. So let's go. HG, you're going to lead off. Who's your man?
The man I've been given. I had to put this out there because it's not who I would want. I was given Pochettino, right? I mean, there are plenty of reasons why we should. We all remember how good we were. Is it 6 years ago now? Crazy. We all remember how good we were when we came close to winning the league. The best side, I don't expect to see a better side than that at Spurs. I really don't. Like, we did enough that season to win the league. It just happened that Chelsea that year had more points. But when it came to the games between the two, there was very little in it. Pochettino knows the club, whatever that means. But, I mean, Adam talked about with Cooper, there's a connection there between the fans and the club. Pochettino brought that to Spurs, gave us, let's face it, the best 5 years we've had in all of our lives as Spurs fans. I'm not really old enough to remember the early 80s when Spurs had a good 5 years and won stuff. But still, that Pochettino, we expect that he'll go back to this high press that we all want to see, the attacking football that we all want to see. And crucially, he wants to be at Spurs. It won't feel like he's doing us a favour. It won't feel like that there's another job around the corner that actually he's angling for. I mean, that's weird because that was one of the reasons why he left. But people were thinking he wants the Man United job, he wants the Real Madrid job.
He was pimping himself out.
Yeah, and that Man United job is not available for the next, I don't know how long. Ten Hag has it. That is his club now. And do Real Madrid really want to go with Pochettino if something happens to Ancelotti? I'm not sure they do. That would be a bit of a... He'd be very lucky to get that job based on the fact that he's, in effect, been out of work. He didn't do much at PSG because the players run the team there. So I just think that Pochettino to Spurs makes a huge amount of sense. But when it comes to uniting the club, there is no manager out there that will do that more than Pochettino. So I think for that reason alone, he would be a good choice. But it's not what I would do.
JP, you've been given, I'm going to try and say his name, Ange Postecoglou.
Postecoglou, yeah.
Postecoglou. This is going to go right up there in my greatest pronunciations ever. Now, my good friend and travels to the game with me quite often, has messaged me earlier and said, "Hey, buddy, for your show tonight, I'd like to say hands off Ange." We'll just call him that because he belongs to the Celts. Because he's also a Celtic fan. He's also a Coventry fan. He's a bit of a fair weather fan, but I love Sean either way. So, JP, go on, make your case for the Celtic manager.
All right, I'm going to start by saying that. I started being up Ange a few months ago, somewhat sarcastically, and I've kind of talked myself into it now, to the point where if he became the Spurs manager, I would be actually well excited for it. Couple of things going on. Harry Kane is likely to leave the club, which will make us even bigger a mess and completely void of any DNA, requiring a complete rebuild. I don't want Thomas Tuchel doing that job, and I don't want to destroy Poch's legacy at Tottenham, which means I want a manager who plays fast-paced, attacking football and can harmonise a fan base and the club, really. And he's going to have to, with Paratici potentially sitting in jail, he's going to have to really drive everything inside the club in terms of how we play, who we sign. Ange Postecoglou, for most people who don't know, is a Greek-born Australian. And
That's the real reason.
He is Australian. I'm trying to take my Australian bias out of it, but it's pretty hard because I think his entire career has been limited by his passport. What he did in Australia, he won in the old NSL. He won, I think it was 2 titles with South Melbourne. He then went to manage the young Socceroos or the Joeys. Did okay there, but we were in a kind of period of not much talent coming through. He then went and managed Brisbane Roar, who were bottom of the league and an absolute basket case, turned them into the greatest Australian football side that's ever existed. Went on to Melbourne Victory, who were the biggest club in the league at that time. They were an absolute mess, completely devoid from club structure all the way down to players, completely rebuilt that team the season after he left to go manage the national team. That squad won the league and went on to play in, I think, 4 finals straight. He then went and managed the national team, which was going through a massive transition. And whilst they lost every game at the 2014 World Cup, really made Australians proud about the way we played and took on the Netherlands and Chile and who else did we have in that group? I can't remember. But we played 3 of the top 10 nations in the world and did really well against them all. Then went on to win Australia's first ever international trophy, the Asian Cup. And at that point, everyone was going, okay, this guy's done it now. He'll get picked up by sort of a top 5 league in Europe, and no one wanted to touch him. So he went to Yokohama in the J-League, another club that had kind of a big history, but was in a shambles at that time. Within a year, he had turned them around to playing really fast-paced, attacking football and won the league at a canter. And in fact, the season after he left, they won the league again with his former assistant coach at Melbourne Victory. I think what's really interesting about that, though, is the way he played football changed the way that every team in the J-League then played football. So 2 of his assistant managers got picked up immediately by J-League clubs, and they've all started shaping their way around how Ange plays football. After that, he went to Celtic, and Celtic were in a mess again. They'd lost a whole bunch of their best players. Members of their board had stepped down. They just lost the 10 in a row to their biggest rivals, Rangers. Everyone said there's no way this guy can do it, but he did. And if you ask any Celtic fan at the moment, this is the best they've felt about Celtic in a long time. It's not just because they're winning football, but it's what he's brought to the club and how he's brought the fan base together. That's kind of what Tottenham need right now. My concerns about him is he's never really had to manage big name players, and this is a big step up. I would have thought that a job like Southampton this year would have made more sense. But if he came, the one thing you can guarantee is he'll play attacking, attractive football as a non-negotiable every game. He'll play the young players. He makes 2 or 3 changes every game, not because he hasn't settled on his 11, but because he just backs players to come in and do their job, and he rotates the squad. I think he does everything that Spurs fans want to see. He just doesn't have a passport or a big name.
Well, he has got a big name. It's bloody hard to say as well. I've got to be honest. So during that spiel, JP, which you beautifully prepared and made the case for, I did text Sean, who is obviously a Celtic fan, just to see if I could fact check. This is the best that Celtic fans have felt about Celtic, and he said yes since the Martin O'Neill days. I mean, that's not that long ago, so yeah.
Oh, it's quite a while ago, isn't it?
Maybe I'm just getting old. Yeah. You had me at attacking football, JP. Adam, are you ready to make the case for your gaffer?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to put this out there that I hope very much this doesn't happen. However, in a neutral sense, I'll put my point forwards for Steve Cooper. Yeah. So, look, Steve Cooper is a manager that comes into a football club and gets players playing better. He gets players to believe in themselves. The amount of Forest players that at the moment looked like they didn't even have a future at the club, and he's galvanised them and just made them better. And he works with youth really well as well. Like Brandon Johnson was outstanding in the Championship and has been brilliant in the Premier League as well. You know, he's worked with Morgan Gibbs-White. It's been great. Jed Spence is a player that he already knows, and he got as much out of Jed Spence as maybe any manager is going to get out of him. And I think the benefit with Steve Cooper as well is he's a young manager. He's got so many ideas. He plays different formations. You know, he's not afraid to rip up plan A and go for plan B if plan A is not working. We did play really attractive football in the Championship. I think that it's difficult for us, but I think if he was at Spurs, he would play very attractive football. He does want to play with wing backs. He does want to play that kind of system, but he'd do it in much more of a kind of like an attacking way rather than the pragmatic way of Conte. And he's the sort of manager that the fans can fall in love with. I mean, if Forest built a statue of Steve Cooper outside the City Ground tomorrow, I don't think anyone would complain. I think people would go and help put it up. Like, he loves the city, gets the club, he understands the players and that sort of thing. And he's the exact manager that Spurs should want and should have, because they're in a bit of a mess at the moment. Spurs are a massive football club. You know, there's all the banter from Chelsea fans and Arsenal fans that I'm sure you're sick of. But ultimately, Spurs are a big club, and I think Cooper has the natural progression to go and play there. You know, he'll have you winning games in so many different ways. And I think sometimes when a manager can adapt to win in different ways, that shows a sign of a good manager. You'll play some teams and you'll win 3 or 4 and he'll be really comfortable. But you can also be pragmatic and win 1-0 if you need to as well. And I think I look at managers, like younger managers that have come from the Championship, like someone's just mentioned there, Thomas Frank. I think Steve Cooper could have a very similar rise to Thomas Frank, that he establishes Forest in the Premier League. He has played decent football. The more years that we're in the Premier League, we're going to have better players come in, hopefully. He's going to be able to have more of his philosophy and stamp that on the Forest team. And it's exactly what he'd do at Tottenham, but he'd just do it quicker because you have those players. And realistically, a point that's sort of been made there, I don't think you need any more high-profile managers. I mean, you've had the most high-profile managers in world football. I don't think you need another one. I think it wouldn't be a bad thing to bring in a manager that is just a very talented squad. He won the World Cup with the England under-21s as well, under 18s or whatever it was, with Phil Foden and Morgan Gibbs-White and those sort of players in that squad. You know, he's very well respected in the English game as well. Personally, I think he'd be a really, really good option for you. But I don't think that Daniel Levy would let his ego aside to employ someone like Steve Cooper. Even though he probably should, I don't think he would. And this isn't just a Forest fan saying this. Like, he was one of the best managers in the Championship last year. There's actually some shouts from people saying that he'd be one of the best managers in the Premier League this year, just because of what he's done and just because we got the squad. He got 30 new players and was like, "There, dumped on you, do it, make it work." And we've been mid-table for the last couple of months. We've been mid-table, been 13th. You know, we've not really been in that much danger. We've been slipping a bit recently, but look, I can be as passionate as I possibly can on this. There will still be loads of Spurs fans that go, "Steve Cooper, really? Is that really all we've got? Is that really all we can do?" But I promise you, it would work, and you would win a trophy under him. He's never done it before, but I know he'd do it at Spurs. So that's my impassioned.
That's a good pitch, Adam, and I'll take that impassioned speech, and I raise you, actually. Because my man is Super Tommy Tuchel. Now, this man needs no introduction. He is a Spurs fan. Took the job at Chelsea under duress. Apparently, the Russian mafia threatened his family. So we can't, we need to discount the fact that he worked for those lot, because it was under duress. Abramovich was going to have him bumped and sent to the gulag. So let me just tell you, Tommy Tuchel is not any coach. He's the world's best club coach, awarded that award in 2020, 2021. He's also a Champions League winner in his first season at Chelsea, a World Club Cup winner, a 2-time French champion, a Super Cup winner, a German Cup winner, a French Cup winner, the German Bundesliga under-19 2-time winner. So you can't really compete with that with your Steve Coopers, with your Ange from Scotland, and with your Pochettino, who was near but still so far. Tuchel is a Spurs fan. He will take the job. It's all about positioning right now. He might not want it till the end of the season. He might want us to be in the Champions League. But the bottom line is Tuchel would take that job. It's an elite job in world club football, the 9th biggest club in the world. There's absolutely no way he wouldn't take that. And to those who say, like James Williams here, James, you've been on the whiskey sunshine. He's not a German Conte because he knows how to adapt tactics mid-game. He plays different formations. He plays progressive attacking football, and he rotates players. And let's face it, he's got a very firm handshake when all else fails. The guy is mustard. He's a free agent. He's not going to cost Levy a penny, which means he's going to be all over it, like Brendan is with a steak. Or Steve Diver is with some type of steak. Well, no, if you've seen Brendan's barbecues, you'll know exactly what I'm on about. He has a whole cow like splayed open and on a fire, a natural fire. So I've got to say, I think Tommy Tuchel is the man for the job. He's the one you want. He's the winner. He's the proven track recordist. He is an elite manager who can get the best out of the players that he has, which is where I believe he is different to your Mourinho's, your Conte's. He took over at Chelsea. They were shit. Took them straight to the Champions League win. I think the tactical flexibility he has and the way he gets the most out of players is completely different to what we've had previously. Tell me I'm wrong, HG. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
I just think it's been really impressive how every single one of us has pushed forward a manager that deep down we don't really think is the right one for the job. Although
no, I would take Tuchel. I would take.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure. All right. Yeah, I wanted Tuchel back in 2014 when we got Pochettino, right? Like I watched enough German football, I knew that he was a good option. He was the up and coming man there. But yeah, I don't think he's the right fit for Spurs now. I don't, and I don't think he sees himself as being the right fit for Spurs either. There are rumours that Bayern will sack Nagelsmann in the summer. Yeah, well, yeah, he's a Spurs fan because he liked the name and he played them on FIFA when he was a kid. I mean, I'm not sure that really counts, unless you unless you liked playing Deportivo Huanca in, I think it's Chile when I was playing FIFA back in the day. No, it's it's a very Levy move to get Tuchel because he has won the Champions League and that does mean a lot. He is a very good manager, there's no doubt about it, but I don't think there's much in it for Tuchel. And as I said, I do think that the Bayern job may well be available in the summer and they might want him. So I think if I'm a manager now...
Why would the Bayern job be available? Because, I mean, I would equally take Nagelsmann in a heartbeat.
Nagelsmann is my first choice. If he leaves Bayern, I'd have him.
The thing with Bayern always is that they have, basically there are three people that are usually involved. You've got the head coach, which would be Nagelsmann. You've got the sporting director, which I think is Hassan Salihamidzic. They call him Brazzo, which is so much easier to say. And then they've got Oliver Kahn, who's like kind of the new Rummenigge figure at Bayern. And the three of them, generally, whoever it is, they'll never see eye to eye. There's always differences of opinions. And I think Nagelsmann, he may win the Champions League. They've won 8 games out of 8 so far, and they've played, I think, Barcelona, Inter Milan, PSG, and one other group side, and they've won every single game. So clearly they're doing well in Champions League, but in the German League, they're joint top, which for Bayern is unheard of. They should be 10 points clear. Dortmund are winning every game right now, apart from the Champions League. That was the first game post-World Cup that they hadn't won. They'd won, I think, 10 in a row before then. So Nagelsmann is on shaky ground in German football, and I could see it happening. And I think if that does happen, then Tuchel, again, he's from southern Germany, so I think he's from Ulm. It's not too far from Munich. He's kind of going home. I could see it happening. So as much as there are reasons to take Tuchel, absolutely valid ones, there are reasons to think that he wouldn't fit Spurs. And as we've talked about before, Spurs right now, whether you like it or not, we are probably 6th of 6, right? Despite the fact that we're 4th in the league, despite the fact that in the last decade we've probably been 4th out of 6, right? At various times we've been the most consistent in there, so 4th most consistent. But we are 6th of 6, really. We don't have the history with players, we don't have the history of trophies, and only recently have the finances been in the same area. So, to me at least, you want someone who wants to bloody a few noses. And I'm not sure that's Tuchel anymore. That used to be him. But I think he would say, you know what, I've proven it now. I won the Champions League with Chelsea after 4 months in charge. Like, are there any levels that you could complete that are maybe winning something with Spurs is probably more difficult? But
that
he
is
doesn't need that
like
anymore.
if you could win something with Spurs, that's like mastery on.
But he won the Champions League with Frank Lampard players. I mean, it's just that there are levels. So I just, like, as much as Pochettino might still have that fire that he had 5, 6, 7 years ago. I'm not sure he does. I think deep down he's still hoping that there's going to be another step after Tottenham. And that's, I don't know, like, you want someone who has done well but knows they haven't proven it at either European level or in a big league and actually competed for things at the top end. And that means probably taking as far as Spurs are going. I don't think Tuchel's a punt. Steve Cooper won't want to leave Forest. Postecoglou may well be interested. I mean, it'd be foolish not to be interested if that was even on the table. But I think that's where Spurs should look. Whoever that is, I don't know. But
let's talk some of the names now. Let's talk some of the names because I've given you those names each, and you've stuck to your task in a way that he's just unbelievable, like SAS commandos in the night. HG, who would your real people be? Who would you be looking at?
I'd be looking at someone probably under 50.
No names. I want names. What? Let me throw.
Okay, well then,
Thomas Frank.
Thomas Frank has done really well at Brentford. There's no doubt about it. I don't know if there's any European experience. Maybe that won't be so necessary at Spurs. But I'm not massively excited by Thomas Frank, if I'm honest. I feel like Brentford are a really well-run club. But how much of it is because they've got Ivan Toney who scored a bunch of goals? Outside of that, what are they? That to me is questionable. And you can say the same about Spurs with Kane, but we may not have Kane. So I don't know about Thomas Frank. He wouldn't be in my top 4 or 5 options, I don't think. I've seen in the comments the guy who used to be at River Plate, is it Gallardo? Obviously never managed in Europe, but won the title in Uruguay, won various things with River Plate, I think 3 Copa Libertadores, wants to come to Europe. Plenty of people say that he's the next big thing. He's under 50. Like, it's weird because, like, again, there's no way Gallardo looks at Spurs and thinks, I want to be there for the next forever. Right? If he gets linked with bigger jobs, he's going to be interested in the same way Pochettino was. So it's a rough thing. Like, Spurs probably feel as if, as a club, they've got to the point where you can say, hey, we're going to be that club that can get someone and then just go with them. We all want the Wenger, the Ferguson type. Arteta may well be that for Arsenal. We want someone like that at Spurs, but I don't think we are there yet. We need still to find that, it sounds awful, that next stepping stone manager, the one that says, I'm going to put Spurs on the map because it puts me on the map. And if I get a bigger move out of it, then everyone wins, right? That's what Pochettino did. So I think that's kind of what Spurs need. This idea that someone who has already made it suddenly may not have the fire. Well, we've seen that with Mourinho. We've seen that with Conte. They played defensive football. It was all about results, all about protecting their reputation. And the irony being at Spurs is that everyone hates Levy so much, your reputation is protected pretty much guaranteed. No one is ever going to blame you for what happens at Spurs. It's always going to be Levy's fault.
Well, we're serial losers, aren't we? Ultimately, that's...
Yeah, I mean, how many teams in the world are serial losers? Pretty much every single one. But yeah, it's just kind of where do Spurs want to be? We are not one of the big teams in big. Like, we don't win trophies in
not
Europe,
a giant. We're not
domestic.
A giant.
I mean, yes, we are, but no, we're not. We are probably the best second level team there is, right? Because we can give you the money, we can give you everything that you've dreamed of, but we are not a top team that wins things, which is what players want to play for those, managers want to manage those teams. And so Spurs are like a great place to, I mean, as we saw with our wonderful team, right? Most of those players moved on to a higher level, or they wanted to. Alderweireld wanted to, he just never got the opportunity. But they wanted to go a step higher, And I feel like managers, we're probably looking for the best of, like the best unproven manager we can get. And if that's Gallardo or De Zerbi or whoever it might be, that's probably the best way for Spurs. As much as I think Tuchel's a great manager, it's just not a great fit for Spurs.
De Zerbi, then, JP?
Didn't make my top 5. I think...
Go on, give me your top 5.
My top 5 was number 1. So I'm looking at managers who can kind of transform us over the next 2 to 3 years and ideally stay on for 5 to 7. But the next 2 to 3 years, I need you to transform us and build a culture. My top 1 was Nagelsmann. Number 2, I would have Poch. 3, I had Postecoglou in at number 3. Yeah.
You believe the shit you were spouting.
Yeah, as I said, I started off somewhat sarcastically, but I've talked myself into it. Number 4, I'm going for Knutsen at Bodo Glimt. I think he plays really, really fun football and can build clubs. And then number 5, I would go De Zerbi. Sorry, he didn't make my top 5. He was 5th.
Adam, who? If I give you a list of people, you tell me who you would appoint, right?
I do.
Apparently, this is the shortlist. Apparently, go on.
To be fair, I do have like a few that I would probably go with if I
go
was
for it.
first.
Yeah, go on then. Give us that. Yeah.
So, if you want, like, I've got 2 options for a younger and an older option. Younger option, I'd go for Marco Silva at Fulham. I really like him. I've always really liked him. I think he's a really good manager. I think Fulham play really good football, and they are massively overachieving this season, like massively. And it's not all because of Mitrovic either. I think that they genuinely are a well-run team. I just think that they were so good last season in the Championship, and this season they've just sort of carried it into the Premier League, which is so hard to do. So he is on the bookies list. I think Marco Silva. He's a bit further down, but he is on the list. If you want like a short-term manager, I really don't think Bielsa's a bad shout. I know that sounds like a really rogue one, but people remember what happened at the end of Leeds rather than how organised he made that Leeds team, how much all of the players bought in. I think if he went to Spurs, and obviously Poch is a massive admirer of Bielsa as well, I do think Bielsa would do a really good job at Spurs, even just for like a couple of years, just to steady the ship and maybe kind of start the process of rebuilding the club. I think he'd be a good shout, but young or old, really, and take your pick. But I think either of them would be absolutely fantastic.
Okay. Apparently, you look like Oliver Skipp. We'll judge that tomorrow.
He's got more hair than Oliver Skipp.
I think this comment from Liam is worth touching on as well. I think whoever we want to bring in next is going to need time to bed a system in. Everyone we're talking about, other than Tuchel, is a project manager. So, that painful rebuild that Poch talked about all those years ago, I think.
People love quoting that quote.
I love it. It's true though. Like, we need to go through rebuilding this squad. I'm assuming we're going to lose Harry Kane.
What do you think we've been doing the last 2 years?
Fucking putting shit around shit.
That's a painful rebuild, no?
Yeah, but like, no idea of how we're going to play. We're just putting things around pieces that kind of work.
David Pleat, he could curb our enthusiasm. Christ, yeah. What do we think about Luis Enrique then? He's the name that's been out there today. HG, would you be keen on this one?
No, I'm not enthused. Not at all.
Reason being?
Well, I mean, like, obviously he won the Champions League with Barcelona, but
he was in cheat mode though, wasn't it?
He won the Champions League with Suarez and Messi and whoever else was in that wonderful side. He went to Roma. I don't remember them being amazing. I didn't love his Spanish teams. They didn't seem to get too far in the various national competitions. Again, it seems to be a name more than anything else. I can't say I've watched too much of those teams when he was around, but I'm not excited. It's weird. I wasn't excited when we appointed Redknapp either, but Redknapp knows how to build a team. And I feel like that's what Spurs need more than anything. Someone who can look at the 30-odd players that we've got under contract and say, right, if I play a 4-3-3 with these guys, that is a team that will function 9 weeks out of 10. And maybe I have to change things up for certain games, but pretty much I know that I've got a couple of players who'll do the dirty work, and I can get whipped from these guys. And we're going to need a partner for Romero at the back. I think that's guaranteed. We still need someone to make a solid centre back partnership. But that's the big thing. I want someone who I think can come and look at the amount of Spurs players that we've got and say, these are the 23 I want to build around. I try and get a couple extra players in that I like and go from there. And I don't see that as Luis Enrique. And so I'm not enthused for that reason.
Okay. Michael Carrick's an odd one that's been floated, JP. What do you make of that?
I haven't really followed his managerial career, so I don't think I can have much of a comment on Carrick.
Adam, any view on Carrick?
Just a bit too soon. Middlesbrough have been really good this year. And to be fair for Carrick as well, for a point for him, is that Middlesbrough squad's actually not that fantastic. And Chuba Akpom is not he's not a top goal scorer in the Championship striker, but Carrick's getting that out of him. It's refreshing to see Carrick do so well because he's clearly a very intelligent person who understands the game. So I think in like 5 or 10 years' time, Carrick's probably not a bad shout. But I think now he's had 7 months in management for Middlesbrough. I just don't think that it's just far too soon for a job like Spurs.
No, it would be mental. Vincent Kompany is another new to management role. HG, zero chance of that happening whatsoever, I would imagine.
Well, if Burnley, this is it. If Burnley go up, then definitely not. I can't. I feel like Spurs
either way.
Like basically, if Spurs are linked with someone from the Championship, they're bound to get promoted, right? That tends to be what happens.
Win something.
So win something. But again, I guess Adam knows this better than most, right? The amount of money that teams come down with parachute payments makes them so much richer than anyone else in that league that, frankly, Burnley, they've had, 40 million this year in parachute payments? That's more than any club in the Championship actually makes by themselves. So, don't get me wrong, Kompany's probably learned from some very good managers over time. The job he did at Anderlecht was okay. They're worse without him, apparently. But, Kompany is probably not thinking about Spurs. He's thinking about Burnley. He'll think about Burnley next season, and then maybe he'll want to go back to German football. I don't know. But again, it's he doesn't have the link to Spurs that Carrick does, but still, no.
Okay. Last question. Adam, who do you want to be the new Spurs boss?
From my
pretend
perspective,
you like us, Adam. Pretend you
Pretend you like it, yeah.
I think Marco Silva would be great, and just another one that I've just thought of, maybe Spalletti. But I don't see him leaving Napoli for Spurs at the moment, to be honest. So I'm going to go Marco Silva. That was my pitch.
Marco Silva. JP?
Nagelsmann.
HG? Top target?
Except Marco Silva loves Richarlison. So there's a link there too. He's bought him twice. Bought him at Watford and at Everton. I go up and down about this all the time. I want a manager that can come in and say, as I talked about before, who can build a team from what we've got. I know Pochettino did that once before, but I still don't know about that. So, yeah, I'm more inclined to think of a hipster, whatever you want to call it, a younger manager that has not proven much. De Zerbi did really well in Italy. It's not like he's an unknown. He got a move to Shakhtar Donetsk because he did really well in Italy. There are reasons for that, but yeah, I honestly just want to enjoy Spurs. I'd be happy with. I talked about this earlier today.
Come on, name a name.
Sounds like you want us to come with it.
You know what? But based on his CV, I would be all right with Postecoglou because what he's done before is exactly what Spurs need. That's it. That really is it. What he's done before is I don't expect him to win the league like he has done at every other club, but he's turned them around. I lived in Australia when that Brisbane team won the A-League, and they were very, very good. I didn't realise it was him. He talks a good game. He's kind of like Martin Jol, right? The Aussie kind of big bloke. Everyone likes him. He gives good press conferences, and yeah, I kind of miss that. So I could be persuaded that Postecoglou is a decent choice. But
I've done it. I've spun everyone around.
Like someone,
Not me, mate.
Someone with some charisma, because that's what Spurs need. I mean, Pochettino didn't have any. Let's be honest. Pochettino's press conferences were pretty boring, but he created a wonderful team, and that's what Spurs need. So if you've done that in your history, then great.
Tommy Tuchel, simple as that. That's my word. You want someone who's going to be adaptive and transform the team. That's it. By the way, my Gary Lineker audition's going very well. The BBC have already been in touch. The phone is ringing off the hook. You've got time. You can join our Patreon. I'm not sure who put that picture on there, but he's a fucking
You did.
bloke. No, I genuinely didn't. That was John randomly. He's obsessed with me. But if you join the conversation over at patreon.com/Cheese Room Podcast. There is exclusive content, articles, etc. Prizes and discounts. We have great prizes for our competitions every season. Last year we even had a signed Jimmy Greaves picture. Chat group, exclusive chat group. That is the most popular benefit, I've got to say. Get together with like-minded people. Cheese Room merch after 6 months qualifying period. Fantasy football. Predict the score with Seb, and all just £3 a month. So go over to patreon.com/Cheese Room Podcast and check it out today. Adam, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Make sure you watch Match of the Day this weekend. I'll be there. JP, always a pleasure. G'day, mate, and all of that. Pop banana shrimp on the barbie.
It's been fun. It's been fun, guys. I've loved talking you all around on another Aussie at Spurs, but we'll see how we go.
I didn't get my Levy out. I didn't get my Levy out rant in this week, so I'm a bit disappointed about that. But there's always the next show. HG, thanks for joining us all the way from Vienna.
No problem. I stand with Gary Lineker.
Yeah, right.
Cool.
You enjoy that?
Yeah, I do. I like people from every country.
Weirdo. And on that bombshell, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
No Australia.